Thank you. And this takes me to the illustrious power team that we have assembled up here for the panel. So, Michael Hill, Alpha Omega, Executive Director, Portfolio Manager, USDA Operations. Thank you, Michael. Altaf Uddin, CIO and CISO for the Kansas Secretary of State. Bill Kim, CISO for Security Bank of Kansas City. And the other half of our keynote power couple and our moderator for today's panel discussion. Please join me on the stage, Kristen Risley from NASCO, VP Enterprise Product Information, VP and CISO, NASCO. There. Thank you, Kristen. All right, so I think you've heard enough from me today. It's been a pleasure. I'll be back to Blitz prizes, but I'm going to hand it over to Kristen and the panel for our Securing the Future session, CISO Insights and Industry Leaders discussing current cyber threats and strategic defense practices. One more loud, robust Midwest round of applause.
Thank you. Just about everybody's a little bit taller than I am, obviously, and so I need to bring that mic down. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and staying for this long day and wrapping up the session. I'm going to try to keep it a little bit lighter with our stories and not so technical and have a little bit of fun with this wrap-up session. First, let's go through and introduce everybody. Altaf, do you want to start off?
Sure. I'm Altaf Uddin. I'm the Chief Information Technology Officer for the Legislative Branch of Kansas. When I got the award, it said, CIO and CISO for Kansas Secretary of State, but that was my previous job. I just actually recently changed it.
I'm Bill Kim, the Chief Information Security Officer for Security Bank of Kansas City, an equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Mike Hill, capabilities for cybersecurity for Alpha Omega for cybersecurity, and also program director for the USDA's CPOC SOC contractor.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you participating in the panel. So the first question, and we'll get it out of the way right up front. How are you preparing your team for changes driven by the emerging technology? Obviously, we heard all about emerging technology today. So what are you doing to prepare your teams?
I'll take that first.
Thank you.
So since I inherited a new team, it's easier for me to actually answer that question, how I'm preparing for that. One of the things that I have sort of noticed is there is a lot more continuous education that's needed for the team. One of the things that I have done is purchased, a lot of training sessions, more like open training sessions like Udemy and Coursera for the whole team. And one of the things that I intend to do next month is sit down with every one of my team members and sort of understand what are they passionate about, what are they doing well today, what do they want to do well today. And then based on that, sort of guide them into getting training in that regard. Because I think regardless of how much training we have at hand, if we don't really want to learn and we're not passionate about something, it's very difficult to actually stay focused and stay on that continuous journey. So my approach to that is really understanding what the person wants to do and what sort of professional development that person wants to be on, and then send them that way.
For us, our approach is how does the emerging technology affect our operation? And if there's an emerging technology that is super cool or super frightening or whatever, we do a risk analysis. And if it's not going to affect our organization right away, we don't need to take a great deal of action. But there are some things that are sensible to plan for. we don't know what would happen if the sun will explode. Well, we do, so we're not going to plan for that. But for other emerging technologies, we can kind of have a roadmap looking at national standards and just our regular processes.
Thank you.
Hi, and we have a number of different areas that we do in this area. One, we have in our case, we have a contract data intelligence officer who can do work and checks on the different areas that are coming out to stay on top of the technology. Also, we have an advanced technology services group that's dedicated to working with different areas. And to grow the people as well, we have what's known as a capabilities group. We have 6 different areas such as AI and cybersecurity. I'm in charge of the cybersecurity for the company as far as that area.
So I think I'll take that one myself as well. I'm doing things a little bit different. I don't believe you can protect what you don't understand. So all of those security folks out here who don't use social media don't understand it, and that's a problem. I believe that for AI as well. So my team was the first team to get AI licenses in the organization, along with everybody else doing the proof of concepts as we were adopting some of the new technology. Everybody on the team. So I don't have anybody in my team who isn't responsible for using AI, particularly Copilot in our environment right now, but we are moving toward Claude, and I challenge them. On a monthly basis, we have a team meeting, and everybody had to come prepared with a meme made by Copilot that had multiple iterations to that meme, and show up and present that to the team, outline what they did, what they tested, what went wrong, what went right, test it from multiple angles, and demonstrate it to the rest of the team. Additionally, I've now asked that they recreate that meme. It's been a few months, and I'm saying, okay, what did you learn? Because now everybody has to use it as part of their daily work. And you have learned, if you ask AI a question from one perspective, it's going to give you an answer, and if you ask from another, it's going to give you another answer. And if you saw my 9 children earlier, you'll know that I had to ask AI 8 or 10 times to be able to get that stick figure picture with 1 boy and 8 girls. It's not very smart. So if you're not recognizing how unintelligent it is, you're not going to protect it well. And so you really need to know those shortcomings. But with that said, can you guys talk a little bit about what you're going to do to prepare for Mythos?
Just what you do. Mythos is Michelangelo. Mythos is the stone virus. Mythos is exactly what it always has been for the last 35 years. It is another technology that is presenting a risk. You need to plan for it and prepare for it and make sure you have a good recovery plan if and when you get affected by it. But it's only a new name for a constantly existing risk to the infrastructure.
So I want to take a little bigger approach to this in my mind, which is, as I think about Mythos or the explosion of AI that we see, there is a lot of iffy AI solutions, and then there are a lot of solutions that will actually make us much more effective. I'm old enough to remember the dot-com bubble of the 2000s. And one of the things that I remember is there was a bubble, there was a hype around the web. And a lot of companies lost money, a lot of people had their, living disrupted, livelihood disrupted. However, that didn't mean that we did not adopt web in a better way. So I think whether it's Mythos, whether it's a different model, a different agent, however many agents we get, I actually tend to think that this is more of a course correction that we would need. Eventually, I have more faith in humanity that we will find that solution. One of the things that I think about is if Mythos is going to be used by bad guys, what can I do? Now, with the team of 50, I really cannot create a solution that can fight a nation state. However, I know that there are a lot of good security companies that are not bolting on their solutions. They're actually looking at fighting this problem for good money. So my approach to is I will keep my eye out for the risk, and I will keep my eye out for what sort of creative human solutions that come in line for us to actually utilize. So yes, there is some apprehension, there is some level of fear, but at the same time, I believe that we can overcome that.
I'm going to keep mine simple and short. Basically, I think Bill and everybody here has covered it pretty well, but there are always going to be good guys, there's always going to be bad guys. It's however you're going to work with the tool is going to be how it works. Organized crime is already out there doing this, nation state like you all were talking about, and your general hacker. It's just what's going to be, and it's our job to try to prevent it as much as we can, and if for some reason they slip through, then we learn from it, and then we learn to defend better next time. That's all we can do. Thanks.
Thank you. So next question, have any of you experienced fraudulent or fictitious candidates or employees within your organization, and how have you handled it?
Yeah. Hey, basically, we haven't had too much problems that way. The ones that I've seen, though, that have been interesting are more people that have put in for jobs by fake employers. That's the one, because they want your private information. They can use it, they can sell
it. We have seen a lot of application that might not fit the criteria that we're looking for. However, I guess, sometimes they hope that maybe once we offer them the job, then, we would be willing to make some adjustments, at least for the time being. So statewide, we have seen, specifically in security jobs, where somebody might say that, yes, they will be willing to relocate, because if relocation is a part of the deal, and then they would ask for, 2 months, 3 months, and then something else would come up. So I think those sort of issues have come up. We do require, if it's going to be a remote position, one of the things that we require is that at any moment we can ask them to be on site, and also maybe starting them on site first to make sure that this is the right person, and not try to validate their identity over electronic means.
We haven't had that problem so far.
Well, you're lucky.
We are lucky, and I have thought, though, if I did have any sort of application that was not local and had an online interview, and they were from somewhere, and I would ask if they would like to do an in-person interview, like, well, I can't travel. It's like, oh, I'm going to be in your city over this weekend. Why don't we get together? I've got this whole thing dreamed up. I don't think it'll be a problem for us.
Nice. Well, at NASCO, we do have this problem. We are a fully remote company, and so that might make the difference. But even in the security team, we had a very specific example of this. We use a vendor management group to help identify contingent worker candidates or contract to hire. And as you heard, I've got a big Okta project going on, and so I've been trying to find a candidate. The first one we hired, my security team interviewed the person, perfect candidate. Answered all of the questions, had no problems, showed up the first day, couldn't get his camera working, a requirement of the job, because we're remote. And so I was patient and said, well, put in a ticket. Let's try to get it worked out. And we got to day 2. And I said to my executive director, I'm like, this doesn't seem right. There's too many issues. I'm meeting this guy for the first time. He can't turn on his camera. He's supposed to be IT. He can't figure out how to move the button on the top of his laptop to open the screen. You know, he doesn't realize that the laptop tells me on Teams why he can't use his camera. So I go with the flow. And DJ, the guy who works for me, called him and said, hey, I can't remember. We talked about some things during the interview. Can you just go over them again? Because I'm trying to work out who's going to do what. He couldn't answer the questions the second time around. He said, well, let me go back and look at my notes from the interview. Well, don't you have the experience, right? You would think that you could actually regurgitate that twice, but no, that didn't happen. By the second day, when we had a team meeting where he was to be introduced to everybody else, he, again, couldn't turn on his camera. Final straw was we had meeting number 4, and again, he didn't have his camera on, and I pinged him and I said, hey, your camera has to be on. This is a requirement of the position. It's got to be on. So a picture of him comes up. Sure, it's a deep fake. He sat there, no emotion, moved his head a little bit. People talked to him, no inflection. He couldn't talk back. So all we were looking at was a picture of a person sitting on the other end of the screen. Needless to say, he didn't stick around much longer after that. We had to let him go. But we have seen it happen, and he fooled the security team. And that's the thing, is it can happen to anybody, which is why I'm bringing it to your attention today, because I think it's something to look for. We make sure that we require cameras, that people have to participate in meetings. You are going to be talked to. We're going to expect responses. You have to log in from where we expect you to log in from. We are checking your location. So there are things like that we've put in place to make sure that doesn't happen going forward.
What Kristen just said, I think there has been issues like this that I have heard of, and one of the things that some of my colleagues did is really like location tracking part, and I think the issue is Kristen is a rock star. She sits in the interview, she aces the interview. I'm the one who tries to do the job, and then obviously I can't do it, right? That's one of the issues that come up. So I have had a colleague who actually said that he did look at the type of work that somebody was producing as well, and it was very clear from the kind of command prompts or the tries that he was doing to fix something did not match the person who actually interviewed. So I think location, quality of work, those sort of things. I guess what I'm trying to say is, in security, you kind of think about, one or two variable is not enough. You kind of bring in more variable, and the picture gets clearer very quickly.
Agreed. Thank you. So next question, how are you shifting your teams to better align with the business?
I can start it. Okay, some of the things our security teams are doing is security a lot of times is looked at as kind of the blockers or the bad guys. Private sector sales a lot of times likes to say, basically, you're in the way, let me get my work done. But as it's been growing, we're more becoming now, instead of blockers, strategic enablers. We're getting in there, we're embedding security into the product development. We're going in and shifting from centralized, decentralized work in a lot of areas, trying to work with the different teams. And I think that helps a lot.
Thank you.
When we have IT risk meetings, it's not just about the IT infrastructure, it's about the IT implementation throughout our entire organization. And a lot of times, people in your organization may not understand how much they use IT. They just don't realize it. And so when we're doing an enterprise risk assessment, it's an enterprise IT risk assessment, which affects all the business units. And so when we're doing all of our strategic planning, we have to sit down with each one and explain, all right, this is a use of technology. Oh, yeah, because we have to, yes, because you're using a computer and you're doing it online. And it seems simple to say it out loud, but to really put it into practice, what does your business want to accomplish? Now, ours is easy. We're a bank. We want to help our customers with their money, keep it safe, and help it grow. Other organizations have you guys, I don't even know how you do what you do. I'm glad you do. So ours is really simple. It's just a matter of protecting the customer information and the experience for our users internally. And that's how we approach it.
I would say that, in my mind, it actually starts with IT leadership. A lot of times, even the IT leadership might be disconnected from, the purpose of the business. And that business could be serving people, business could be making money, business could be transporting somebody from one place to another. I think, it's easy for us to say that everybody should be aligned with business, but the onus is on the IT leaders to translate that in an easier way. So I usually have conversations with my staff, and I encourage my directors and managers to have conversations with their staff that when we're doing something, think about, find your why. Why are we doing this? Is it because we need to go from Windows Server 22 to 25, or is it because there is a feature that needs to be added that would help, security or some functionality? So I think the approach that I take is I don't really, although I see it, I don't really, I'm not surprised that a lot of, IT employees don't think about that why, but I try to translate that for him.
Thank you. So I think everybody heard earlier, right? Shift security left, and not just into DevSecOps. Shift it left into the organization and make it part of your daily way of life, so that it's not it's not a burden to anybody, and it's just something that comes naturally to them. Start preaching so that they understand what that means to them, particularly in their specific roles. So next question. Detect, respond, and recover are critical steps in incident response. What steps are you taking to shorten the time to recovery?
I'm going to have to keep mine pretty generic because I work for the government, and I don't want to have to face the FBI too much. I'm going to leave it as rigorous training, preparation, automation, and targeted response strategies, a lot of exercises.
So I will say that one of the things that a lot of us have to sort of think about is when we go talk to our business partners and say, hey, all our services are down. And then they say, when is it gonna come back up? It's gonna be 8 hours, 4 hours, whatever it is. We need to ask what services needs to come back up first. And that conversation has to happen very early. Because when you go to 5 business partners and say, you ask, what is priority, what is important, every 5 of them are gonna say, my services needs to come back up right now. So my rule is every business partner would have to identify 30% or less of their services that they call that's super critical. And then in a situation, I would actually work on those first and then go work on other things. And that conversation, if that happens early on, it becomes much easier. So in my previous role, I was the CIO and CISO for Kansas Secretary of State, which meant that I was responsible for the IT services and security for election, and also all the businesses that we serve in Kansas. Sure, everybody's services needs to be back up, but then, we sort of sat down and said, on this day, these services are going to be the most important, And that conversation took place months ahead of time. And I think that that kind of makes it easier for everybody so that there isn't any confusion on the actual crisis day.
For us, the discussion has gone from a tabletop exercise, which a lot of people do regularly. It's important to do those. But have you ever gone from a tabletop exercise to deleting an entire subdirectory and just say, oh, shoot, can you restore that? And hopefully it's backed up somewhere. But a lot of that, though, is the business planning and what is the most critical. And we've got different parts of our business, like ATMs and ITMs, and those need to be available. So those are a priority. And we have our frontline, our customer service, our tellers, those need to be available. So everything's a priority, but what isn't a priority? And we just have to test, and every time we test, we find another lag in response. It's not just a matter of, you know, the server team says, oh, we can be up in 8 minutes. Really? I mean, really? So, and that's changed. So we have to challenge our own teams to prove the response, and that goes into a live. We actually don't do tabletops anymore. We do live exercises because tabletops are theoretical, and theoretical makes you a headline. So we do live exercises.
Awesome, thank you. I think of recovery, if anybody's heard of the minimum viable system conversation that's been going on lately. In healthcare, we were all impacted by Change Healthcare breach and the amount of time it took for them to recover. And with that, MVS came out of that. So I think of recovery as a monopoly board, and you have to work your way around the board, and you only get so many pieces of property you can land on, and those are the systems you get to bring up. And when you pass go, that's when you can start making money again. And the only way to actually recover your business is in layers, one pass around the board at a time, so that you can actually start making money again when you turn systems back on. And you can segment those layers around the board in ways that you can prove you've isolated those systems and your customers want to use them again and reconnect to them and do business with you again. And you can get a forensics report that proves that those systems are actually isolated and now secure, once again, while you work on the rest of your business, the next pass around the board, to bring up more systems and start to make more money. And if you don't start to think of it in layers like that as you recover, you're suddenly trying to eat an elephant, and the elephant's too big. And so I agree, right? You have to figure out what your priority systems are, and you only have so many of them you can choose. So, burnout in cybersecurity. What are you guys doing to address that?
Okay, this is an area I'm kind of passionate on that and developing my people. To combat fatigue and chronic stress, instead of just having to do tickets, things like that, we try to rotate things, the jobs. We try to spend time in education. Also, there's different areas that we can go ahead and have the personnel work. Threat hunt, try different areas that they can work on to grow themselves so they have a good experience. And I think this is really important. Also, recognizing them and giving them special projects to rotate things in between, because otherwise you burn out.
But how do you avoid burnout?
I love my job. I'm a workaholic, folks, so I admit it. But the way I do it is different. I basically throw myself into a lot of education, get involved in different areas, and help with special projects. I also help with different agencies within the government where I can.
I'm old and tired, but I think what we do is, it is a noble cause. I really do think it may sound naive to say it that way, but what we do is very important. And yes, we're tired. And it's I've worked with law enforcement, I've worked with emergency responders, I've worked with every kind of agency, and people that are out doing day-to-day physically grueling things and psychologically grueling things, working with different cybercrime units and the images you never, ever, ever leave your mind 20 years, 30 years later. Those sorts of things stay with you. But what we're doing is keeping those agencies going. What we're doing is keeping those frontline people able to do their jobs. And whether it's a bank teller or a government worker or a first responder, what we're doing is important. And I'm still old and tired, but I try to make it fun. I try to make it fun for my team. We go out, we don't do the, fall back and catch me team building exercise, because nobody would catch me. I'm old and a little overweight and tired, so they wouldn't catch me. But we do things that we just go out and grab a bite every couple of months. We leave everything behind, and we don't talk about work around the table. We put our phones down and we just talk about, hey, what's going on with whatever? And we become people. When we become people, we're part of a group of just people. We're not team members fighting the fight and doing the thing. We're just plain old people. And if you don't have a good peer support group, if you don't have people that are just people that you talk to, get some. And if you need one, find me. I'll be a people for you. It's important just to have regular conversations. It's helpful and healthy.
Forgot to mention one thing. You were talking about passion. The one thing everybody forgets about USDA is kind of a quiet agency, but what everybody doesn't realize, we're protecting the nation's food supply. And if we don't do that, then you're not going to have your pancakes in the morning. So anyway, but all seriousness, things happen. You got to protect it, just like utilities got to protect your electricity, the water plants, everything else. Food, if you can't eat, then there's a problem.
I think I don't have a whole lot to add to that, but we also try to shift responsibilities around to give relief, to each other. And one of the things that I always lean on is seeing the purpose why they're doing it, right? Because when you are working hard and you see why your work matters, even if it's very hard work, it is easier to tolerate than not knowing why you're doing that. And as much as possible, we try to do other things, like whether having an outing or giving some extra time off and rotating work. So nothing out of the ordinary, but we keep trying.
Thank you. I do a few things myself, and being remote makes a difference. But most importantly, I make a family. Security's hard, and we need each other in order to do the job. And the people in other departments are great, but more than not, they're asking us to do a lot of things, that really go against what we want to do. And it's stressful, right? So instead, we have to look within our own teams to lean on each other when times are tough and days are stressful and you don't want to come back the next day. So we have a Teams chat, and the whole team participates in that Teams chat. We say good morning every day. We say good night. We say what the weather is. We create memes in Copilot. And we have Fun Fact Friday. Every Friday, I ask a question of the team, and they score points by answering, and the questions are crazy. And they just teach each other about the other person that they work with. And so that's what they're meant to do. What's your favorite food? What crazy ice cream have you eaten? Whatever. But the point is that we become a family. We know things about each other that nobody else knows because we do some of these things. And because we can't get together and we can't do team building, we have to come together in different ways. And these challenges, right now we have a Harry Potter challenge going on. Everybody's assigned to a house, and you win points if you participate in different things like Fun Fact Friday. And so they're always encouraging each other, right? Come on, team. answer, do your training. The first team that gets everybody to do their security awareness training for the month wins extra points, right? So as much as we preach to the rest of the company, I make my team own that, and we make it a game. Is there anything you do special to keep your top talent? Because right now, it's pretty easy to jump from place to place.
Okay, there's some of the things.
Microphone.
Okay, now we got it. Okay, I mean, as far as keeping top talent, stress is there, but at the same time, there's a lot of opportunity. We're in one of the best fields there is, even though it may come off stressful. But eliminate one of the biggest things, I try to protect my people from blame. I want to get the job done and learn from it. So if nothing else, that's important. Also, prioritizing training. I've got some people out here who work with me who knows I'm very big in pushing training, and as far as certs and as far as education. At least it gives you baselines and it keeps you thinking. Also attending events like this. Investing in automation, try to get rid of some of the different areas that you basically have to do that are repetitive. You have to work with different ticketing systems, things like that. Anything we can do to automate to get rid of the routine is important. And protecting recovery time. When a person's off, we got to try to leave them alone as much as we can. In my case, I've got people working. We have to go in the office part of the time. I mean, that's the requirements, but I try to do 4 10-hour shifts for my SOC people. That way, then they get a little extra time off, but in turn, when they're there, they work.
You know, we are try to be competitive with the market. For our team, it's a small team, and not a lot we can do more than what you throw some money at them, throw a couple of benefits, but engage them and make them, don't make them feel important, make them be important. And there is a huge difference between making somebody feel important and then just being important. Engaging them regularly and trusting them with things. That's how you keep people, making them, it's like, if I don't come in today, well, nobody's indispensable, but don't let them know that, and be that person for your company. Be indispensable because you're growing and hungry and learning more. But we try to keep our folks engaged in all kinds of different ways. The silly parts are even the best way because it's so non-traditional, and people remember that. It's like, I really want to work there because it's this experience.
So, in government, we're in a very unique situation where we cannot compete with the private sector when it comes to money. But at the same time, I think we try to reward our employees with, other opportunities, like be it training, be it professional development, or some extra time off. So we try to do that. I do encourage my staff to come to, see more people. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but a lot of people in IT, specifically in security, they don't want to get out of their own comfort zone. But I try to encourage them, and I always think of, if somebody can do a great job for 3 years for me, 2 years for me, and then they have an opportunity to make more money or step up somewhere else, and I don't have that opportunity to give to him or her, that's great, because the way I think about it is I need to, as a leader, I need to create resiliency in my team so that 1 or 2 people leaving is not going to affect the team. And then I also try to give them the benefit of professional development and other opportunities. And then, if they're great employees, they're actually going to produce better results, and then 3 years, 2 years down the line, if they move on, I'm happy for them. So we can't compete, so we try to get, the best out of them and make it as easy as possible, as fun as possible while they're in our team.
Absolutely.
One thing I forgot to mention, I think this is critical. For those of us who are management, your personnel, don't take credit. You want your people to get credit for what they do. You don't have to take credit for yourself. You don't have to take credit. If your people are successful, you're going to be successful. And make sure that you do that, and you're going to have a way better atmosphere, and they're going to trust you, and they're going to take more chances to do the job and stay around.
Amen. I can't add to much more than what everybody else has offered already, but I will say thank you. Say I appreciate you. Say, I'm sorry I yelled at you yesterday, but can we move forward today? Because there are times when I yell, my team knows, because we've got to move things forward, right? But come back and build those relationships with your team and help them understand where you're coming from and why. So I'm going to jump a little bit and ask probably final question before we ask the audience some questions. For anybody wanting to be a CISO, what do you recommend?
First, ask yourself, why on earth do you want to be a CISO?
Right, nobody does after this.
I mean, if you want to be the liaison between operational functionality, support, the hands-on, the cool stuff you get to do every day, and standing in front of the board of directors with a PowerPoint slide with a bunch of pie charts on it, you want to be somewhere in the middle there. That's where you're going to find yourself. If you want to explain, if you can explain in non-offensively simple terms to non-technical people. I work with accountants who are wizards with numbers. I don't know how they do what they do with numbers. And so that's what we do with technology. I let them be experts at what they do, and we're experts at what we do. If you want to be a CISO, you have to be experts from the frontline teller, the facilities manager, all the way up to the board of directors, and everybody in between. You need to be able to look them in the eye and explain absolutely everything in a way that they understand, they get buy-in. If you want to be a CISO, you have to be everybody in between your very first entry level and your highest position.
Okay, I'm going to say there's two different ways to look at this too. There's government and then there's commercial. First of all, there's different needs and different expectations. If you're working with government, everybody first, you got to be able to, I started this out working with salesmen when I was working in IT. You got to be able to speak geeked English. That helps a lot. But the next thing is, if you're working with federal, they've got different interests because they got to work with executive orders coming down. They have to work with the FISMA, FITARA scores, things like that. And you got to figure out how to support people to make them look good and make the secretary happy or whoever you're working for. As far as commercial, it's about, unless it's nonprofit or something, it's about money. You got to show what your value is, and you got to be able to speak that. The one thing that does come up, though, that a lot of people don't think about, CISO has a different meaning for different companies. Small companies, to get them in, they want a technical person, and they give them a title sometimes. If you get in a big organization, you need somebody who can talk with the board of directors, which luckily I've been good at that. So it depends on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. So you got to ask more questions than just that. What kind of CISO do you want to be?
I would say if you're okay with not having your hands on the keyboard, then maybe you would want to be a CISO. Otherwise, if you really love doing things, tinkering with stuff, love technology, you're going to miss that. When you become a CISO, you really don't have time to actually try any new tricks. It's all about clear, decisive communication with stakeholders. And your communication have to be extremely unambiguous, extremely honest. And there is an element of risk-taking as well. Because you have to operate with incomplete information. So if you're not comfortable, as technologists, we kind of know when something works, when something doesn't work, or why something works, why something doesn't work. You can always find that semicolon that you missed in your, code. But when you're dealing with people with board, it's not that precise. So how you say things, how you communicate, and how quickly you can actually make a decision with the understanding that with every decision you are taking risk, and a lot of times that risk is actually your job or your reputation. So being comfortable with that level of ambiguity is important. Otherwise, it gives you a lot of heartburn.
I agree 100%. I think that we make decisions quickly with the information we're presented with in the moment, and tomorrow we have to make a new decision with the information we're presented with in the moment, and that may change yesterday's decision. And you have to be willing to take that risk as you're working through the day. So I'm going to open it up to questions if there are any, and of course I have other questions if we want to keep the panel going, but I want to give people an opportunity if they had any questions.
Yeah, I saw her first, sorry.
Hello, my name's Pamela Purple. So I have a question. I was former military, so I did cybersecurity in the Navy. In the Navy, it was data protection at all costs. And the transition when I retired was cost is everything and data is less important. How are you all managing or recommend managing the transition? Because with all the ransomware and the data exfiltration that has, not only with the embarrassment for a company to be exfiltrated, what do you all do, or how is that challenge to get the corporation to understand that protecting your data is very important? And do you see that transition now where that's more important than actually the cost, profit over data?
So the easiest way is have a breach. But I'll let them actually answer.
I'm going to go with that, actually. I hate to say it, but you start off, I've worked in different parts of the industries as well as government, and the one thing you're going to find in industry is, I hate to say it, fines, reputation. Will people want to do business with us? And that forces you to have to take that into consideration and do what you can. Size of the company makes a big difference too.
Any?
Yeah.
I think that's a very difficult question, and what Kristen said is once you have a breach, all of a sudden your data is extremely valuable, and then over time that data's cost or the stock price keeps dropping, and then you have a certain incident and all of a sudden it sort of goes up again. As IT leaders, IT professionals, security professionals, all we can do is really communicate what's at stake. So if you work for a company that really values revenue over anything, then being able to show that if we have this situation, then we can actually lose money, that helps. If the company actually values reputation, then that's another one. So I think you kind of have to think about what is it that the leadership or the board values, and then show what portion of that is at stake. But I think the value of security will keep going up and down depending on how long it has been since you had a breach.
Question?
Question. So this might be a little more lighthearted, but I've noticed a theme throughout the entire day with AI is the human interaction. And that AI is also becoming less and less quote-unquote technical, even though most of us in this room probably come from very technical backgrounds. AI, as we advance, is becoming less technical. So as we move forward into that world, what skill sets that are either in lieu of or in addition to that are important to move into that field?
Love putting me on the spot. Nah, I think it's still growing. I think, quite honestly, when I've talked to one of the people that I used to work with, who's now CISO of the Department of Transportation, gave me some good advice. Zero trust, first of all, is critical for any of this as far as that goes. But as far as AI, we're in its infancy. We're learning. I mean, I do feel that that's why they're saying slow down and have people be kind of in the middle right now, because we are learning. As it automates and it learns, because these tools are going to learn, it's going to improve. But in the meantime, what we can do, learn about the different types of AI, learn about, there's a lot of different things out there. ISACA, for instance, has a certification now on the basics of AI. There's different areas, there's seminars all the time. You're constantly learning. There's different types from, you've heard them talking today about agentic AI versus the different types. You're gonna have to learn how those work and how your agencies do it. The other thing I tell everybody, and I had a big dose of this actually, is how much the different tools that are out there that you're buying, they're building it in more and more. You gotta learn what's built in there so you can use them right, don't repeat stuff, and don't have them conflict. Those are my pieces of advice.
I think, as I'm thinking about trying to answer this question, which is a very difficult question to answer, I would venture to guess that the amount of change that my parents' generation needed in their work has significantly changed for my generation's work. And next generation's work would probably have to change even quicker. So I would probably focus on the adaptive capability, really that being one of the core competencies that I would, urge people to build adaptive capability and then intellectual curiosity outside of what we do. We live in a time where we cannot get comfortable for 5 years. Pretty soon, I shouldn't say pretty soon, ever since 2002 November, is that right, when ChatGPT came, we couldn't get, if you really want to track the advancement of AI or all the news or all the sort of, different paths that you need to follow, you don't have downtime even for a week. 5 weeks and you're already behind. So I think that building that adaptive capability is the core competency that I would focus on, rather than a specific technology like AI or anything else.
So I'm going to wrap it up with just one last comment. While we need to continue to adopt AI, and I believe in using it, you also have to continue to show its risks. Ask any of the AIs out there if Windows Hello is an MFA, and then ask it why it's not an MFA. And you are going to get two opposite answers. And that will demonstrate that you can't just trust AI, right? You have to have the person in the middle, and they have to learn AI. They have to learn how to prompt it right to get the answer, an accurate answer, and they have to know whether it's an accurate answer, and so we can never take the human out of the middle. Okay, I think we're being yelled at to wrap it up. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you coming. Have a great evening and drive safely. Oh, that's okay.
Hey, before we get started on prizes, I just want you guys, you probably already know this, but these guys could be literally anywhere and probably need to be other places, but they have chose to be here with us. And so we pretty appreciate their choice. And so I just ask you to give them another round of applause. And just so y'all know, the bar is still open. So if you want a cocktail, you can head over there. Also, I don't know if we still have any of our sponsors in here with us, but without them, this would also not be possible. So give them a round of applause as well. And these prizes would also not be possible. So thanks for sticking around for this. I know it's a fun part of the day.